The night was cold inside the docking bay. The smell of oil, metal, and burned circuits filled the air. Traders moved in shadows, their voices low, their hands quick. This was not a legal place. This was the black market at the edge of the Orion Rim. Captain Darren walked slowly through the rows of cages. He had been here before. He knew the kind of business that happened here: weapons, stolen tech, forbidden maps, even slaves. He never liked this part. But sometimes destiny forced a man to walk where he did not want to. The cages rattled as creatures cried. Some begged, some screamed, and some just stared with empty eyes. But one cage was different. It was silent inside. Sitting still was a girl. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes glowing faint blue. She looked no older than 16 by human years, yet she did not speak. Not a sound came from her lips. The trader in charge noticed Darren staring. "Beautiful, isn't she?" he said with a greedy smile. "But useless. She does not speak. She does not follow commands. Silent like a dead star." Darren frowned. He was not here to buy a slave. He was here for fuel cells. But his eyes stayed locked on the girl. She did not look broken. She did not look defeated. She only looked silent, like she was waiting. "Why is she here?" Darren asked. "Captured from the ruins of Ethra," the trader answered. "Her kind was almost wiped out. No records of them remain. No buyers want her. A mute alien has no value." He leaned closer and whispered, "I'll give her cheap. Captain, take her away before she stars in my cage." Darren's heart was heavy. He had seen cruelty in many forms: war, slavery, betrayal. But something about this girl made him pause. She had not begged. She had not cried. Her silence was not weakness. It was strength. He sighed. "How much?" The trader's eyes sparkled with greed. 2 fuel cells and 300 credits. Darren narrowed his eyes. "That's robbery. She's starving." "Then leave her," the trader shrugged. "No one else wants her." For a long moment, Darren stood still. His crew would not like this. Bringing a silent alien girl aboard would cause questions. But his gut told him to decide, and his gut had kept him alive for 40 years among the stars. "Fine," he said at last, throwing the credits. "Open the cage." The trader grinned and unlocked the bars. The girl stood slowly. Her eyes lifted and met Darren's for the first time. A flicker of emotion crossed her face. Relief. She walked out quietly. No chains on her, no words from her lips. She simply followed Darren, her steps light as though she was drifting in space itself. When they reached the ship, the crew stared. A mix of surprise, fear, and anger spread among them. "Captain, what is this?" growled Jorik, the engineer. "We are not slavers. We don't bring trouble aboard." She was dying in a cage. Darren said firmly, "She comes with us now. She is under my protection." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. Some shook their heads, but none dared argue with the captain's tone. Inside the ship, Darren gave her a room. He placed food on the table, bread and protein packs. She looked at the food, but did not move. "Eat," Darren said softly, his voice not commanding, but gentle. She stared at him, then slowly lifted the bread and took a bite. Her movements were careful, almost ritual-like, as if she had not eaten in weeks. Darren watched silently. He had expected fear or anger, but what he saw was patience. She ate like someone who had learned to survive without asking. Later, as the engines roared and the ship lifted into the dark of space, Darren stood by the viewing glass. The girl sat quietly behind him, staring at the stars. He turned. "You have a name?" No answer, only silence. Her glowing eyes blinked once, then turned back to the stars. The silence filled the room, not empty, but powerful. It was the silence of someone holding secrets, secrets that could change a man's life, secrets that could change the galaxy. For the first time in years, Darren felt something he had almost forgotten, a sense of destiny. Days passed on the ship. The girl remained silent. She never asked for anything, never moved without reason, and never spoke a word. The crew grew restless. Jorik, the engineer, muttered curses whenever he passed her in the hallway. "She is cursed," he said one night. "Machines act strange when she's near. Lights flicker, doors jam. My engines cough like old beasts. Captain, we should throw her out before she dooms us all." Darren listened but said nothing. He had noticed it too. The ship's systems behaved oddly around her. Screens glitched, comm signals dropped. Once, even the shields pulsed for no reason. Yet she never touched a single console. She only sat, her glowing eyes always fixed on the stars, as if she was listening to something no one else could hear. One evening, alarms blared. The crew rushed to the deck. A raider vessel had appeared from the void, black and sharp like a hunting hawk, its weapons armed, its engines burning bright. "Pirates!" Jorek growled. "And they're not here for trade." The enemy ship hailed them. A cruel voice filled the calm. "Give us the girl, Captain, and we will let you live. Refuse, and we burn you to ash." The crew turned to Darren in shock. How did the raiders know? How could they ask for her? She had never spoken, never sent a signal, yet they knew. Darren's jaw tightened. "She is under my protection," he replied coldly. "You want her, come and take her." The crew gasped. Their captain had just invited death. The raiders opened fire. Bolts of plasma hammered the shields. The ship shook. Alarms screamed. Jorek fought to keep the engines alive. The gunners fired back, but the raiders were faster, stronger. In the chaos, the girl stood, her silent figure steady even as the deck trembled. She walked to the viewing glass, her eyes glowing brighter. The crew watched in fear. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, but this time not in weakness. The air hummed, a strange vibration running through the metal walls. The ship's systems surged with power. Shields held strong, stronger than ever before. The raiders fired again, but their bolts bent strangely, curving away as if space itself twisted. Confusion filled their comms. "What is happening? Our shots are missing." Darren looked at the girl. She had not moved her lips, not lifted her hands. Yet something about her silence filled the room like a storm. The raiders, shaken, pulled back. Their ship vanished into warp space, fleeing without another word. Silence returned to the deck. The crew stared at the girl with wide eyes, fear and awe mixed in their faces. "She did this," whispered one of the gunners. "She turned them away without a shot." Jorek spat on the floor. "I told you, Captain, she is not normal. She is dangerous. If she stays, more will come. They already knew her name before we did." Darren turned to the girl. She stood calm, her eyes fading back to soft blue. For a heartbeat, he thought he saw sorrow in them, like she carried a weight no one else could see. He felt torn. A part of him wanted to demand answers, but another part knew. When she was ready, she would speak. Until then, her silence was a shield. That night, Darren could not sleep. He sat alone in his quarters, thinking, who was she? Why did raiders hunt her? How could she twist battle itself without words? He thought of her pale, silver skin, her glowing eyes, her silence that felt heavier than any scream. He remembered the moment he saw her in that cage. She had not begged. She had not cried. She had only waited, as if she already knew this path was written. Destiny, he thought. Destiny had walked into his ship, silent and patient. Far away, unseen in the deep dark, whispers spread among hidden channels of the galaxy. The silent air had been found. The girl with the forbidden voice was no longer lost. And the galaxy would never rest again. The ship drifted through the quiet lanes of deep space. Engines hummed. Lights glowed soft, but an invisible weight hung in the air. The crew worked, but their eyes often turned toward the silent girl, some with fear, some with suspicion, and some with a strange curiosity they could not admit. Captain Darren, however, was not blind. He saw the tension in his people. He saw the way they whispered when she walked past, as if she carried shadows with her steps. But he also saw something the others did not. He saw patience in her silence and strength in her stillness. He tried to speak with her, day after day. "You don't have to be afraid here," he said once, setting a plate of food in front of her. She looked at him, her glowing blue eyes soft but unreadable. She took the food and ate in silence. Another day, he tried again. "Do you understand me?" Her eyes blinked once, slowly, as if to say yes, but no word followed. At night, when the crew slept, Darren sometimes walked the halls of his ship. He would find her sitting by the viewing glass, staring at the endless stars, her posture calm, her gaze fixed far away, as though she listened to voices the rest of them could not hear. One night, he brought a blanket and placed it over her shoulders. She did not move, but her eyes turned to him for a brief moment. In that silent gaze, he felt something stir, a thank you, though not spoken, a bond beginning, though fragile. The crew was not blind either. They noticed her quiet presence. Some mocked her in hushed tones. The captain's ghost, one muttered. The mute star witch, whispered another, but none dared speak loud in front of Darren. His glare silenced them faster than words. Yet not all were cruel. A young medic named Rin left small things outside her door, fruit, a cup of water, or a folded cloth. The girl accepted them silently, and once, just once, Rin swore he saw the faintest smile touch her lips. Strange things continue to happen. The engines ran smoother when she was nearby. Doors that jammed before opened with ease. Wounds healed quicker in the med bay, as if her presence bent fate itself. But danger also grew. They were followed more than once, shadowy ships lurking just out of sensor range, always vanishing before Darren could confront them. One evening, the ship stopped at a refueling station on a small moon. The crew scattered for supplies. Darren gave her the choice to stay on board or walk outside. To his surprise, she chose to follow him. The market was crowded with aliens of many kinds, loud voices bargaining, smells of roasted meat and burning fuel thick in the air. The girl walked close to him, her steps light, her silver skin shining under the neon lights. Everywhere they went, eyes followed. Some stared in curiosity, others in fear. A drunk merchant blocked their way. His breath reeked of sour ale. He pointed a shaking finger. That one. I know that one. She's the cursed heir, the mute shadow. He slurred. Sell her to me, Captain, before death follows you home. Darren's hand moved to his blaster, but he didn't need to draw it. The girl's glowing eyes fixed on the drunk, and suddenly he stumbled back as if struck by unseen force. His voice died in his throat. He fled into the crowd, pale as ash. The crew spoke of it all night when they returned. Some whispered she was a weapon. Others feared she was a beacon for death. But Darren thought of her differently. She was not a weapon, not a curse. She was something far more, something he had yet to understand. Later, as the ship lifted from the moon, Darren found her sitting once again by the stars. He sat beside her, silent for a long while. Finally he spoke. You don't have to carry it alone, whatever it is. Her glowing eyes turned toward him. For the first time, he felt warmth in that gaze, a fragile spark of trust. She said nothing, but in her silence he felt the weight of meaning, stronger than any word. In that moment, Darren knew the bond between them was no longer chance. It was the beginning of something greater, something the galaxy was not ready for. And far away, in hidden corners of the stars, more eyes began to search. Whispers grew louder. The silent one was not just alive, she was no longer alone. The ship pressed deeper into the star lanes, silent engines cutting through the dark. The crew tried to return to routine, but the shadow of fear followed them. They knew now they were hunted, not for cargo, not for fuel, but for the girl. Darren felt it every time he checked the scanners. Unmarked vessels tailing them from a distance, disappearing when he turned to face them. It was like being stalked by ghosts, predators who knew patience better than prey. One night, the alarm shrieked again. A black frigate slid from the void, its shape sharp as a blade. Its insignia belonged to no fleet, no nation, only raiders and mercenaries who killed for coin. The comm crackled, a voice smooth and cruel. Captain Darren, surrender the girl. You know what she is, you know what she carries. Give her to us, and we will let you live. Refuse, and we will take her from your corpse. The crew stared at their captain, waiting. Darren's eyes narrowed, his voice steady. She is under my protection. You want her, you'll have to go through me. The raider laughed. Then you will die with her. Plasma fire lit the void. Shields screamed. The ship rocked under the storm. Sparks showered across the deck as panels burst. The crew fought back, but the enemy was stronger. In the chaos, the girl appeared at Darren's side, her glowing eyes locked on the enemy vessel through the viewing glass. Her silence heavy, Darren saw her fingers curl as if fighting an invisible chain. He felt it, power swirling in the air around her, unseen but alive. The enemy frigate fired again, but the shots bent, skimming past like broken arrows. Confusion filled their comms. Our weapons won't lock, the readings are wrong. Darren's crew gasped. They had seen it before, the impossible bending of battle. She was protecting them, though she spoke no word. The raiders did not retreat this time. Instead, smaller craft launched. Boarding ships filled with mercenaries, hooks and clamps bit into the hull. The enemy was coming inside. The corridors turned into war zones. Darren and his crew fought with blasters and blades. Metal clashed. Smoke filled the air. Screams echoed. The girl moved through it all like a shadow. Untouched, her silence more terrifying than gunfire. A mercenary cornered her, blade raised, his grin cruel. Silent one, your value is not in your voice, but in your blood. He sneered, he swung, but his strike never landed. His body froze mid-motion, eyes wide. Then he fell to the ground, lifeless. The girl had not moved, not touched him, yet death claimed him as if space itself obeyed her. Fear spread among the raiders. They whispered her name in terror. The silent air. She lives. Some dropped their weapons. Others fled back to their craft. When the last invader fell or fled, silence returned. Smoke lingered. Blood stained the floors. The crew stared at the girl with wide eyes, some with awe, some with horror. Jorik, the engineer, snarled. She is death walking. Captain, every day she stays, more will come. They will burn us all just to reach her. Darren's jaw tightened. He looked at the girl. She stood calm, but her glowing eyes carried pain, not anger. He saw it clearly now. She did not wish for death. She carried it unwillingly, as if cursed with power she never asked for. He spoke firmly. She is not the enemy. She is under my command, and if anyone questions that, they answer to me. The crew lowered their eyes, grumbling but silent. Later, when the ship drifted free of danger, Darren found her again by the viewing glass, her gaze fixed on the stars, her hands clenched as if she held invisible chains. He stepped closer, speaking softly. You don't have to fight alone. Not anymore. For a moment, her eyes met his, bright, sorrowful, and unspoken. He felt the bond deepen. She still had no voice, but her silence spoke louder than any words. Far across the galaxy, in the halls of secret councils and shadow fleets, whispers carried. The silent air had revealed her strength, and enemies sharpened their blades. The galaxy was stirring, and the shadows were closing in. The ship floated in silence, patched and scarred from the last battle. The crew worked in shadows, their eyes restless. Every corridor carried the echo of fear. They all knew the truth now. They were hunted not for treasure, not for war, but for the girl who spoke no word. Captain Darren stood on the bridge, his hands pressed against the console. He studied the star charts, searching for safe paths, but safe did not exist anymore. Every system whispered of patrols. Every route smelled of traps. Enemies wanted her, and enemies would never stop. The girl sat at her usual place near the viewing glass, her glowing blue eyes fixed on the stars. She had not moved in hours. Her silence felt heavier than space itself. Darren often wondered, was she waiting for something, or was she hiding from it? The crew avoided her now. Some crossed hallways to keep distance. Others muttered curses behind closed doors. Only Rin, the young medic, left food at her door. Yet even Rin whispered to Darren, Captain, she is not normal. I don't think she should be with us. Before Darren could answer, alarms screamed across the bridge. A fleet had arrived. Not one ship, not two, but an entire formation of war cruisers, their metal hulls black, their weapons glowing. They filled the void like a wall of death. A voice thundered over comms, cold and merciless. Human captain, surrender the girl. You carry the silent air. Give her to us, and you may crawl away with your lives. Refuse, and you will be erased from the stars. The crew froze, their faces pale. Jorik slammed a fist against the console. We can't fight this, Captain. It's suicide. Darren's voice was low but steady. We don't give her up. The crew exploded in protest. She isn't worth all our lives, one shouted. She is cursed, cried another. She is death. Through it all, the girl remained seated, still, her glowing eyes unblinking. The war fleet outside armed their weapons. Dozens of cannons locked on the ship. In seconds, they would fire. Darren gripped the controls. His heart pounded. He was ready to die. He would not abandon her. Then it happened. The silence broke. The girl stood, her silver skin glowing faintly, her eyes brighter than ever before. She opened her lips, and for the first time, her voice filled the air. It was not loud, not a scream, not a cry, but soft and steady, a single word in a language no one knew yet everyone understood. "Stop," she said. The sound rippled through the ship like a storm. The air vibrated. The lights flared. Every heart on the bridge skipped a beat. Outside, the fleet trembled. Their ships shook as if caught in invisible chains. Cannons froze mid-charge. Engines flickered and died. The merciless voice on comm turned to gasps of fear. "It's her, she has spoken." The entire fleet stopped moving, stopped firing, stopped breathing. It was as if the galaxy itself obeyed her command. The crew stared in awe and terror. Rin dropped to his knees. Jorek clutched his chest, his face pale as snow. "Impossible," he whispered. Her voice bends ships. Darren's eyes locked on her, his breath caught in his throat. He had seen many wonders, but nothing like this. She had spoken one word, and an army fell silent. The girl slowly lowered her head. Her glowing eyes dimmed. Her voice faded back into silence. But the damage was done. The galaxy had heard her. Her first word had broken chains that should never have been broken. The enemy fleet did not attack. They pulled back, vanishing into the void with fear in their hearts. They would return stronger, but now they knew. The silent air had awoken. On the bridge, no one spoke for a long time. The only sound was the hum of the ship's heart. The crew stared at her with wide, haunted eyes. Darren stepped closer, his voice gentle. "You can speak." Her glowing eyes lifted to meet his. For a moment, sorrow filled them, and she whispered again, barely louder than breath. "Not speak, command." Those words echoed deeper than any star. The crew now understood. She was not mute by curse. She was silent by choice, because her voice was not just sound. It was power, a power to shake the galaxy. And the galaxy had just heard her first word. The ship drifted in uneasy silence after the enemy fleet fled. The crew worked with trembling hands, their eyes never straying far from the girl. They had seen it, heard it, felt it. Her single word had stopped warships. Her voice had chained an army. Whispers spread through the corridors. "She is not human. She is not even mortal," muttered one. "Her voice is a weapon," said another. Some avoided her completely, too frightened to stand near her. Captain Darren, however, could not turn away. He had questions burning inside him, questions that would not rest. He found her sitting again by the viewing glass, her eyes dim now, tired, as if her own power had drained her. He sat beside her, the silence stretching long between them. At last, he spoke, his voice steady. "Who are you?" For the first time, she answered more than a single word. Her voice was soft, smooth like water, but carried weight like stone. "I'm not what you think. I am not a slave, not a lost child. My silence was not weakness. It was protection." Darren listened, his heart heavy. She continued, her glowing eyes fixed on the endless stars. "I am a last of Ithra, the silent heir of a fallen throne. My people ruled not with armies, not with steel, but with voice. Our words shaped the will of others, bent fleets, turned battles, but it destroyed us. Enemies feared us, allies betrayed us, and so they burned our world." Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with grief. "When I was taken, I swore never to speak again. My silence was my shield. For every word I release carries power, a power I cannot control. That is why I stayed quiet. That is why I was nothing but a shadow in a cage." Darren's chest tightened. He understood now. Her silence was not curse. It was mercy. Her voice was not gift. It was burden. She turned her glowing eyes toward him. But the galaxy does not forget. They will hunt me until the end. For with my voice, empires can rise or fall, kings can be crowned or broken, and war will follow me wherever I walk." The crew gathered near the doorway, listening in secret, their faces pale as they heard her truth. Rin, the young medic, whispered, "An heir of Ithra. I thought it was legend." Jorek spat. "Legend or curse? She will doom us all." Darren rose to his feet, his voice firm. "Enough." He faced his crew, his eyes hard as steel. "She is not doom. She is not curse. She is under my protection. She has carried this burden alone long enough. If the galaxy wants war, then they will have to go through us first." The crew fell silent. Some looked away, some lowered their heads. None dared challenge the captain's words. The girl studied him. For the first time, her lips curved into the faintest trace of a smile. It was not joy, not relief, but something fragile, trust. But deep in the dark of the galaxy, the revelation had already spread. Hidden channels carried the truth. The silent air had spoken. The last of Ithra was alive. On distant worlds, kings stirred uneasily. Warlords sharpened blades, and fleets began to move. Old enemies rose from shadows, drawn by the power of her voice. The galaxy was trembling again, not because of her silence, but because she was no longer silent. And Captain Darren knew the storm was only beginning. The galaxy did not stay quiet after her voice was heard. Across star systems, whispers turned into fear, fear turned into panic, and panic turned into war. Fleets that had slept for years rose from their docks. Secret councils broke their silence. Warlords and kings whispered one name again and again. The silent air. On the ship, the crew felt the weight of it. Every signal that reached them spoke of unrest. Battles flared on distant moons. Patrols doubled at the borders of empires. The balance of power cracked like glass under fire. Captain Darren stood on the bridge. He watched his crew, tired and wary, yet still standing. They did not trust the girl fully. Not yet, but they trusted him, and that was enough. The girl sat near the viewing glass as always, but she was no longer just a shadow. She carried herself like someone who remembered who she was, an heir not of riches, but of burden. Her silence was now a choice, not a prison. One night, the ship was surrounded again. Dozens of warships filled the void, their insignias from many different empires. Enemies who had never stood together now stood as one. Their comms flared with threats. "Give us the silent air. Surrender her or die." The crew froze. Rin whispered, "We cannot fight this, Captain. It is too many." Jorek snarled, "I told you. She would bring ruin." Darren's voice was steel. "She is under my protection, and I will not hand her over." The girl rose. Her glowing blue eyes burned brighter than ever before. Her voice, soft yet unshakable, filled the air. "No, Captain, this is no longer your fight alone. This is mine." She stepped to the front of the bridge, her silver skin shimmering, her presence commanding. She looked at the wall of ships outside. Thousands of weapons aimed at them. She took a deep breath and spoke. Her words were not loud, but they carried through space like thunder. "Kneel," she said. The void trembled. The enemy ships shuddered. Crews screamed. Commanders clutched their throats. Engines died. Weapons powered down, and slowly, one by one, massive fleets bent under her voice. Entire armadas fell silent. Entire legions bowed. The crew gasped. Some fell to their knees without realizing. Even Darren felt his heart tremble. But he forced himself to stand, his eyes fixed on her. She was not a girl anymore. She was something greater. The comms were filled with terrified voices. "It is her, the heir. She commands us still." Others begged for mercy. Some swore loyalty. The galaxy itself bent under a single voice. When the last ship lowered its weapons, silence filled the stars. It was not the silence of peace, but of fear. The girl turned back, her eyes soft, weary, but steady. She whispered, "This is why I stayed silent. Captain, my words are chains. My voice is war, wherever I walk. Peace dies." Darren stepped forward, his voice steady. "No, your voice is not war. It is choice. You can shape it. You can change what it means. The galaxy may tremble, but you are not alone anymore. She looked at him, and for a moment, the burden in her eyes softened. He had not bent to her power. He had stood beside her, and in that moment, she knew. Her silence would no longer be her only shield. She had an ally, a protector, perhaps even a friend. Far beyond, the galaxy shook. Empires fell into panic. New alliances formed. Old enemies swore vengeance. The silent air had spoken, and nothing would ever be the same. Captain Darren stood with her, watching the stars burn with unrest. The galaxy was breaking, but for the first time, he felt hope, because the girl who once sat silent in a cage now stood free. Her voice no longer hidden, her power no longer buried. The galaxy trembled under her words, and the future of every star now rested in the silence and the voice of the silent air.